This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
How the hell did we get here with Brandon Aiyuk? I don't know, but let's try and figure it out together on another Gold Standard podcast sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Network. Brandon Aiyuk, as of right now, is still a San Francisco 49er. It is incredible, all the different twists and turns that this thing has taken. As of right now, he is still a 49er. Who knows if I'll be able to say that even before I finish the show? We'll have to find out. There have been multiple updates throughout the day. And the latest coming on NFL Network in a hilarious segment where the insiders are there doing an update. And if you're watching on the stream, you could see in the background is Aiyuk's agent. He's chilling there in the background and they're giving the update. And he didn't want to be on camera and he didn't want to come on and talk about it. But as of right now, nothing is done. The agent said, Ryan Williams, don't believe everything you read. Maybe it's trending that way. Maybe it's not, whatever. But again, as of right now, no dice with a trade for Brandon Aiyuk. So on today's show, I thought we should get to the bottom of how did we get here? And more importantly, who is to blame for where this has gone with the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk? And nobody is blameless. There's blame for John Lynch. There's blame for Parag Marathe. There's blame for Kyle Shanahan. There's blame for Brandon Aiyuk. There's blame for everybody. But if I'm trying to figure out who gets the biggest slice of blame pie, as they say, it's got to be the 49ers. I would say Lynch, Parag get the biggest piece because they lowballed Aiyuk before this all started, right after the Super Bowl. They approached him about a deal. They lowballed him. They thought he would take it. He didn't take it. The market explodes in a way that was predictable, really, because you could see all the free agent wide receivers. You could see the wide receivers that were due for new contracts. The market explodes. They don't do anything. They don't adjust their offer. They have not engaged Brandon Aiyuk in a contract discussion since May. That's been reported by Mike Silver. So they threw this $26 million offer down on the table, and that's it. They have refused to adjust it. And now, all of a sudden, they're willing to trade him when they weren't before the draft, right? They refuse offers during the draft. Now, all of a sudden, they're willing to trade him. And so now, because they know that, because other teams know that Aiyuk can flex his muscles, they're not offering the 49ers anything. So what you're looking at is potentially trading Brandon Aiyuk for a substandard package, whether it's players, picks, whatever the case may be, because he clearly wants to go to Pittsburgh. That's not a good way to do business. That's just not how these things are done. It's not how competent organizations do things. It's not how organizations with a plan do things, right? Just look at the DeForest Buckner situation. The 49ers approached that situation logically and with a plan. They were like, hey, we've got to get this done. We've got to know one way or the other what we can do. And they had figured out by the combine that they weren't going to be able to sign him and that they gave him permission to find a trade. His agent found the trade and bing, bang, boom, that deal was done. And they had plenty of time to figure out who they were going to take with the draft pick. That's what an organization with a plan does. This was not planned out by the 49ers, or the plan changed. But clearly they didn't have their ducks in a row, because if they did, we would never be here. We would never be here. Arjun, watching on YouTube. Shout out to Arjun, a YouTube channel member, and all our YouTube channel members. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you want to become one, please do. It's less than $3 a month to get custom emojis, membership badges, priority comment response. Arjun says, I'm not sure which scenario I prefer. I just want the drama to be over. I think we all do. I think we all do. And I've seen this. Jim Everett brings this up. Aiyuk to the Steelers verbally agreed to for a second-round pick. A verbal agreement is nothing. Like, who cares? A verbal agreement is nothing. Until you have pen to paper, you have nothing. So I don't really care about verbal agreements. What is this? People are saying that Aiyuk has officially been traded. If that is true, I haven't seen it. And again, I'm trying to keep an eye on things, but if anybody has it from an actual national reporter or a local Niners reporter, let's know. The Niners appear to be working out several wide receivers after practice, apparently. So that is a thing. I think we are inching closer to this thing. But again, as of right now, I don't see anything official. We will have to see. And again, if you see it, throw the tweet in the chat, whatever. Let's do it. But the 49ers didn't have a plan for this. And the fact that it's here is crazy. And I think the fact that Kyle Shanahan hasn't intervened to stop this or fix this is telling. I think it tells you what Kyle Shanahan really thinks of Brandon Aiyuk. And actually, if you read Mike Silver's article, maybe Shanahan intervened negatively. Look at these quotes from Mike Silver's article. Quote, the head coach is bothered by Aiyuk's behavior. From the receiver's conspicuous bro hugs to his perceived brooding and willingness to move on. Aiyuk's trade request rankled high-level members of the organization, as sometimes happens, and his hold-in, it turns out, cranked up the pressure another notch. Are the Niners going to trade Brandon Aiyuk because Kyle Shanahan got his underwear twisted? And like, is that really where we are? You're mad because he did some conspicuous bro hug? Really? That better not be true. That's not an organization with a plan. That's not an adult in the room, a grown-up organization, a serious organization. It's not. So, I mean, if Shanahan couldn't deal with a hold-in, like, what are we doing here? That better not be true. But here's the thing. Nobody's more tied into Kyle Shanahan than Mike Silver. Nobody. He's known Kyle since he was a teenager. So Mike can sit here and try to couch it as multiple sources say this, high-level members of the organization. It's Kyle. It's Kyle. Because I'll tell you this, if those sources weren't Kyle, Mike never would have printed it because Mike's going to check with Kyle and Kyle's going to shoot that down. The fact that it's in there means Kyle wants it out there. So if that is true, then Shanahan deserves a huge slice of blame pie, just a massive slice of blame pie for this too. I think they underestimated Aiyuk's willingness to hold fast. I think they thought he would kind of go along, right? Quiet guy, Brandon Aiyuk doesn't complain. Oh, eventually he'll buckle. I think they underestimated that. Now, I do want to say this because I feel like insiders are talking about this. I saw Michael Lombardi say this with McAfee, that if guys hold in, the team loses leverage. I don't agree with that. Now, if the team just refuses to use all the leverage they have, that's one thing. But they have more leverage. The 49ers don't have to trade Brandon Aiyuk. They don't. If they refuse to trade him, there's nothing Aiyuk can do about it. He's under contract in the 5th-year option. There's nothing he can do. If the 49ers wanted to, they could say, you play for us or you don't play at all. And then they do nothing. You stop negotiating. In the media, like I said earlier this week, you just say, hey, we're moving on. We're moving forward. We're past the Brandon Aiyuk situation. If he wants to take a contract, great. If he wants to play, great. If he doesn't, great. Either way, we're moving forward. They don't have to trade Brandon Aiyuk. There's nothing he can do about that. He can stomp his feet and huff and puff behind the scenes, but that's it. That's all he can do about that. And if I were the 49ers, I would say, let's see him do it. Let's see him do it. Let's see him sit out. But what I'm not doing is trading him to the Steelers because why? Like, that's what I don't get. The 49ers do not have to move him. Now, maybe they don't want to take that route and they don't want to exercise that leverage, but it's there if they want it. So all these articles about how Aiyuk has leverage and he's exerting power over them, I don't believe it. It's just not true. It's the reality of the situation. So I don't know why people are ignoring that. They're acting like it's not possible that the 49ers could do that. Like, you absolutely can do it. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. And if you're the 49ers, what makes you a better team? Getting a draft pick and a league average lineman from the Steelers, or keeping Brandon Aiyuk in-house and either one, just letting him sit out and dealing with it next year. Maybe you franchise him, you trade him after that, whatever the case may be. Or two, if you want to move him, wait till the deadline, right? Trade him during the season when other teams have wide receiver injuries and maybe they're more desperate and they want to get involved. And maybe there's a team that Aiyuk would be willing to go to that's not willing to engage with the 49ers right now, but next year they will be, right? I just think that you gain nothing. You're trading from a position of weakness if you do it right now. And you should never trade from a position of weakness, ever. So I don't know why people aren't bringing up the possibility of the 49ers just sitting on Aiyuk and doing nothing. I don't know why that's such a foreign concept. They would never actually do that. Why not? Why not? And that's why I think ownership needs to get involved too. An owner could tell them, hey, this is what we're doing. I'm tired of hearing about my team every day. We should be talking about a Super Bowl team. We shouldn't be talking about Brandon Aiyuk. And apparently Robbie Chosen is working out for the 49ers today. So the wide receiver core is a mess. I know Deebo Samuel was getting worked on at some point. Now he returned to practice. He's okay. Pearsall's banged up. We know that. Christian McCaffrey is banged up. We know that. Fred Warner didn't practice today because of foot irritation. It's 2020 all over again. It's not quite that bad yet, but damn, it sure feels like things are stacking up for the 49ers right now. Jan says, Aiyuk playing on the 5th year is the most likely scenario to me. I don't know if he'd actually play. Maybe he'd sit out, but I would want to make Brandon out. Let's see if he's willing to do it. Let's test that resolve a little bit. But if I were the 49ers, I'd say, look, Aiyuk, you claiming your back is hurt. Let's send you to a back specialist. If your back is hurt, let's check it out. Otherwise, practice or get fined every day. How about that? Because right now he's like, oh, my back I got general soreness, whatever. Start finding him. If you're going to play hardball, play hardball. Use the tools in your toolbox, 49ers. And I don't know why they haven't, but they absolutely should. What have you got to lose at this point? You've boxed yourself into this situation because you didn't trade him back before the draft like you should have. But now, since you're here, don't just give in. Do what you can do to win. So I'm stunned about this whole thing. This is a team that held on to Jimmy Garoppolo like grim death, right? Well, we don't give away good players. And now they're just going to trade Aiyuk to the Steelers because why? It just seems weird. The difference in those two things to me are really weird. And again, nothing is done. We don't know for a fact, but it seems like it's slowly circling the drain to finally get it done. And I wouldn't do it if I were the 49ers. I absolutely wouldn't do it. And it seems really weird that it's not done yet. I know I saw a tweet from Diana Rossini, who is an insider for The Athletic, who said the Pittsburgh Steelers, along with other teams, are in communication and still negotiating with the 49ers for Brandon Aiyuk. No deal is done, according to sources. Now, is that real? Or is that the 49ers trying to put that out there to get the Steelers to up their offer? It seems pretty clear it's like the Steelers are no one at this point. Maybe not, though. It's possible. But that's the troubling thing for me, is that the 49ers seem to be dealing from a position of weakness, and they're not actually in a position of weakness. It's like they either don't know or they're not willing to. Michael King says, stats are so off the market sad. BA changed his price to keep up with the Joneses. We're talking a 1 year with a raise in the millions. You blame the 49ers. Yes. Of course, BA's price went up. The wide receiver market exploded. Of course, his price is going to go up. You have to be willing to pay the market rate. The 49ers should have known this, and they should have seen that explosion coming. They could have signed him to if they offered $28 million a year in February, right? Right after the season ended. You offer $28 million a year, and people would be like, oh my God, $28 million a year. And guess what? All those other contracts would have signed, and this would have looked like a bargain. So, yeah. I do blame the 49ers. Of course, BA's asking price is going to go up. Every player wants to get as much money as possible. Just like we would, right? If we negotiated our salaries like this too, we would want the same thing. So this is where we are. We sit, we wait. Seemingly more and more, like I said, the 49ers are working out wide receivers today after practice. Robbie Chosen, that's not great. Tariq Owens, T.O.'s son has been released. He's got a fracture in his finger, I believe. That's going to keep him out for a while. So they released him with an injury designation. It's going to keep him out 5 to 7 weeks. So I guess they need another wide receiver for camp, whatever. But I'm surprised that things have gone this way because the 49ers have dealt, like I said, with DeForest Buckner. They've dealt with a situation like this. They executed the plan perfectly. Now, look, the guy they picked with the Buckner pick was not good, but that's separate from how they handled the situation. They tried to get Buckner resolved. They realized they couldn't do it right away, and they reacted accordingly. And why they haven't done that with Brandon Aiyuk is either a misreading of Aiyuk or a misreading of the wide receiver market, but it's a screw up by somebody, clearly, because this is not the way professional teams act. It's just not. And the Steelers look great in this whole thing, right? Because they sit back and they look like they're going to be able to negotiate with no other teams for Brandon Aiyuk, and they eventually look like they're going to get it done. You know, it would be interesting if the 49ers had offered another contract since May. But the fact that they still haven't, by the way, just shows that they don't really think Aiyuk is worth it. Either that or Jed York has told them, you can go no higher than this. Those are the only two potential things I can see, which if that's the case, I feel like they would have traded him by now. If Jed York had said, you can go no higher than this, then they would have moved him by now, I feel like. Because they would have known this is our best offer. He doesn't want it. Oh, well. The whole thing is a mess. It is a mess. And the vibes around the 49ers right now feel terrible. People have talked about how the vibes feel off at practice. All that could go away when they get on the field again if they start winning. But right now, it stinks. And there's no reason for it to be like this. There's no reason for this uncertainty. If the 49ers are convinced that it's unsalvageable and they don't want to use the leverage that they have, then trade him and be done with it. Or if you want to use the leverage that you have, tell that to everybody and say, we're done, and you be done with it and you move on that way. But to live in this state of limbo is not good for anybody. It's not good for I guess it's good for content creators and radio stations. I shouldn't say that. I was on the radio a little while ago talking about this situation, so I guess it's good, but we should be talking about the good stories in camp, right? We should be talking about Deommodore Lenoir, how he looks absolutely incredible right now. We should be talking about the strides that Jordan Mason has made, which apparently he's made significant strides. We should be talking more about Dominic Pooney, how it looks like right now he is locking down the starting right guard position. There are a lot of positive things happening with the 49ers, but we can't focus on them right now because one of the most prominent offensive weapons may be off the team. And that's the shame of it all. Oh, and I should mention too, always drip 805 says Trent Williams is more important than Aiyuk. Yes, he is. He's unsigned. Are the 49ers working on that at all? There was one Trent Williams question yesterday to Kyle Shanahan. There should have been more, by the way. There absolutely should have been more. So it's weird that the 49ers have chosen to live in this world when they don't have to. And as I said, they could be trading him right now. He could be dealt. We could get news at any time. And if that's the case, then at least it'll be over. But man, it's freaking nuts. It is crazy that this is where we are. Marcus Brown says, as others have said, if Purdy is an elite quarterback, he won't need Aiyuk because he'll be able to elevate others and not need elite talent everywhere. Well, that's true. That will be the test if Aiyuk is moved and they don't get a wide receiver in return, right? It's going to be more on your quarterback. When you pay quarterbacks, and the 49ers will have to pay Brock Purdy after this year if they want to keep him. When you pay those guys, they've got to be able to pick up the slack. That's just the reality of the situation. They have to be able to compensate for the losses that will inevitably come once he gets a big deal. And maybe he can. You know, I know people like to point at the games last year when Debo and Trent were out and they weren't great, but Debo was out 2 years ago and Brock was okay. So we need more of a sample size to figure it out, and that's something that Brock is going to have to prove this year if Aiyuk is gone, among other things. Baziman says Brock Purdy undefeated against the rest of the sorry-ass NFC West. That is true. As of right now, he has yet to lose. Collecting Fire says, I would hate to be on a bum-ass team. maybe I mean, it's not clearly about money with Aiyuk, right? Because we got word yesterday that the Patriots had offered the most money out of everybody, and the Niners had agreed to a deal with the Patriots. And the only reason Brandon Aiyuk is not a Patriot right now is because he didn't want to go there. So it's not just about money because the Patriots offered the most and Aiyuk didn't take it. So I think it's about Aiyuk wanting to be on the Steelers and not anywhere else and wanting to dictate how this turns out. And I think if the 49ers do let him dictate it, it's going to be something that they have to deal with in the future. I think it's going to be something that other players are going to say, hey, Aiyuk just provided the blueprint. This is what we need to do. This is how we need to handle the situation. And we can get out of town too and end up where we want to end up. And that's another part of this consideration. What is the precedent that you are setting for other players? It's a fair thing to bring up. It's an absolutely fair thing to bring up. There's one other aspect to this that I kind of wanted to get into. If you think somebody else is going to win the NFC West, maybe you're down on the 49ers, whatever, now is the time to make that bet. As we go to the BetUS website here, you can see. Let's say you think the Niners are going to trade Aiyuk and you think the Rams are going to win the NFC West. Trade him now, make the bet now, excuse me, because when Aiyuk gets traded, the odds will probably change a little bit and your number is going to get worse. So you're going to want to do it now. Don't wait for the official word to come down. If you're confident Aiyuk is getting traded, then you could bet the Rams or the Seahawks or the Cardinals now. Rams are plus 325. Seahawks are plus 700 right now. Cardinals are plus 1,200. That's not great. But the number will change. So if you want to make the bet, you should do it with BetUS. They're offering 125% deposit match on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. And let's be honest, we all know you're going to bet on the NFL this season anyway, right? Why not use BetUS? They have the fastest payouts in the industry. They have fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process, live wagering on all major games. So you should absolutely do it. If you're going to do it with BetUS. You can click the link in the description. I'll have a link in a comment as well. Go and check it out. Again, you get the offer that I mentioned, 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. If you think that, do it now. That's the best way to win those bets. Do it before the number changes. I still think the Niners are winning the NFC West. For what it's worth, I still think the Niners are going to do it. Whether Aiyuk is there or not, will the offense change? Sure, it'll change, right? You're going to have to rely on Kittle more. You're going to have to rely on Debo more. 100%. Doesn't mean you can't. Especially if Pearsall can actually play a little bit, which we don't know. I know he's been banged up. I know it's frustrated. People are speculating about the pick and all that stuff. Pearsall was never hurt in 5 years in college. It's not like he has a long history with injuries. So let's not write him off just yet. I know, there have been issues with press coverage, and that's fine. Everybody's got stuff to work on. But I'm not willing to call him a bust before he's even played a single game. Let's slow down with that, please, and thank you. But this offense can evolve without Brandon Aiyuk. It can. Juwan Jennings will get more targets. They certainly have enough guys. Go look at offenses around the league. They don't have the weapons that the 49ers have, even without Brandon Aiyuk. There are some offenses that would kill to have the weapons that the 49ers have. Will it hurt? Unquestionably, it'll hurt. They will be a worse team, no doubt. Don't forget, this is the offense that scored 60 touchdowns last year, more than anybody else. Not all those were by Brandon Aiyuk. So I'm at the point now where I just want it to be over. When I have big decisions to make, a lot of times I won't make them right away. I'll try and research, and then I'll get nervous that I'm going to make the wrong decision, and I kind of put it off, and I kind of worry. I get really anxious about it. But then something happens in my head. I don't know what it is, where I just reach a point where I'm like, I no longer care if I make the wrong decision. I'm tired of worrying about this and thinking about this, and I just do it. Especially if it's like a big purchase, like a car or like a renovation project at home. Eventually, my desire to stop feeling anxious about the situation supersedes my fear of making a less than optimal decision. And maybe that's where the 49ers are with Brandon Aiyuk. It's possible. I know that's how it works with me. CJ Gary says, this is a run offense. We'll be fine. They do like to run it a lot. The good news is we're hearing Jordan Mason looks a lot better. So even if Christian McCaffrey is a little banged up, maybe you have something there in the back. The offense doesn't totally go in the crapper if he were to miss time. I think it's reasonable to expect Christian McCaffrey to miss time. He's going to be out of practice 2 to 3 weeks. He's not going to play in the preseason. He's been incredibly durable for the 49ers since coming over. But he is a running back that's older, that's had a lot of touches recently, and it's not entirely out of the question that he would miss time this year. 49ers supposedly think they have the depth behind him to sustain that. And really, if last year taught us anything, it's got to be just get to the playoffs and be healthy in the playoffs, and we'll take our shot, right? Like, I'm not going to be concerned this year if the 49ers are the number 1 seed or not, or if they get a bye, or if they have to go on the road. All I care about is make the playoffs and win when you get there, because you had all that stuff last year. It was all lined up for you last year. You had plenty of rest at the end of the year. You had the bye. You were playing at home. You still didn't win the Super Bowl. So forget style points this year. So even if the 49ers went 9-8, if it got them into the playoffs, I would not care. It's all about what happens in those playoff games. So if that means, if Christian McCaffrey is not healthy and Debo misses time and Trent misses time and they go 9-8, whatever, so what? Just get to the playoffs and make that run. I think they will. They're going to be a playoff team even without Aiyuk. If everyone else is healthy and Ayuk's not there, they'll still be a playoff team. Without question in the NFC, without question. Will they be as dominant as they were last year? No. Will you probably have to depend on Brock Purdy to kind of pull a rabbit out of his hat late in some of these games? Maybe. But you know what? Brock has shown a propensity to do it, even in his bad games, right? Even in that game against the Browns, when it was nut-cutting time, he drove them down the field and put them in a position to win with a short field goal. They missed the field goal. That's not his problem. That's not his fault. He got it done. In the Super Bowl, in the fourth quarter and overtime, he never left the field without giving his team the lead. That's got to be encouraging if you're a 49ers fan. The young quarterback has shown that in crucial moments, he can come through a lot of the time. And he may have to do that more this year. Maybe they're not winning by 2 scores in the fourth quarter of every game. That's okay. Again, style points don't matter. Style points do not matter. Trying to read some of the chat here. Apparently there's a war between Niners fans and Rams fans. Jim Everett stirred it up. I appreciate you, Jim. Do you watch more 49ers podcasts than Rams stuff? Because you're in all our shows. So I just want to know. Do you have time to watch Rams stuff? There's good Rams content creators out there. Jake Ellenbogen is a great content creator for the Rams. Just checking Twitter quickly. Seemingly, we get updates by the minute. Not seeing anything new. Seeing a lot of 49ers content creators that are going through it. I'll tell you that. Not a lot of people happy right now. I know if you're like me, you don't want to leave the house in case you miss it, right? Because you want to be able to go live whenever the news breaks. Trent Taylor had a touchdown grab in practice. Man, Trent Taylor, if Trent Taylor was half as good in the regular season as he was in training camp, he'd be a damn Pro Bowler, man. I swear to God. Marcus says the 49ers don't handle all situations well. They botched the Trey Lance situation too. Yes, they did. Clearly they did. They botched that. They botched the trade situation. They botched the handling of that. They botched the handling of Trey once he got here. In Kyle Shanahan's own words, he failed Trey Lance. Now, I will say this. They got a 4th-round pick for him, which is more than any other quarterback from that class that's been traded. That pick, I think, became Malik Mustafa, if I remember correctly. So at least that part of it, right? They got more back for him than you would have thought. And maybe they can do the same with Aiyuk, right? Maybe they can get, I don't know, some deal that we're not even thinking about. Maybe they finally squeeze it out of Pittsburgh or some other team. And if they do, that will be something. I don't know. Aiyuk's agent was at Raiders camp today. And I'm seeing a tweet from Ted Wynn of The Athletic, who says a Devontae Adams for Brandon Aiyuk trade would make sense if they could rework the final 2 years of Adams' deal. Adams could help the 49ers in their Super Bowl window, and Aiyuk can help the Raiders now and in the future. I don't know. Maybe Devontae Adams wants out of the Raiders. I don't know. I mean, there's no 49ers fan on the planet that would be mad at that deal, right? You trade Brandon Aiyuk. Oh, that sucks. You get Devontae Adams. Okay, you've improved. That's an improvement if you're the 49ers. I don't see that happening, but damn, I would be happy if it does. That would be the best possible return you could hope for. That would be even better than the Amari Cooper return, to be honest with you. That would be, I mean, Devontae Adams in this offense would be devastating. I would friggin' love it, man. I don't think that's going to happen. Again, does Aiyuk want to go to the Raiders? Why would you? If he didn't want to go to the Patriots or the Browns, why would you want to go to the Raiders? What's their quarterback situation? It stinks. You think he wants Aiden O'Connell throwing him the ball? Eesh. I don't think so. But if it happens, great. If they could work some sort of voodoo on Brandon Aiyuk to get him to okay the deal to the Vegas Raiders, okay. Just seeing Fred Warner said his foot issue is minor, even though it kept him out of camp today. Nothing major at all. He wasn't wearing any extra protection on his foot, and he had no limp. So that's obviously good. What a mess. If you had told me at the end of last year that this is what I would be talking about on August 7th, I never would have believed you. I never would have believed you. Blood Moon, thank you very much for the super chat. Says Niners will not set that precedent for what BA is trying to do. BA has enforced his leverage. The Niners will do the same. There is a reason Steelers came back. We'll see. We'll see. You know, the Niners have had a feeling of everybody pulling in the same direction for a long time. This is really the first time you feel like they're not. Even though Debo requested a trade, they got that deal done. Once that deal was done, there was no question whether or not Debo was, pulling in the same direction. So this is the first time we've seen where if they do make Aiyuk stay, it'll be very interesting to see what that's like throughout the year. It'd be very interesting. And let's say, for example, the 49ers did say, hey, you're playing for us this year. And let's say Aiyuk didn't want to sit out. He was playing, but he was, he wasn't going above and beyond like he has in the past. How would Kyle Shanahan react to that? Would he put him back in the doghouse and just freeze him out of the offense? Use him as a decoy the whole time? I could understand if the 49ers wouldn't want that situation, but I still think that's preferable to trading him for a bag of cats. I really do. I would much rather have that. I'm sorry I would, because like I said, maybe you move him later during the season, before the trade deadline, whatever the case may be. At least if you move him before the trade deadline, you have more of an idea of what the draft picks might look like, right? Because teams will have played. So, I don't know. I just wouldn't trade him now unless you get a return that you absolutely love. But if it's just, well, he doesn't want to go anywhere else except Pittsburgh, that's not enough for me to get me to move. It's really not. Jan says Brandon Aiyuk bluffed. The 49ers aren't bluffing. We'll see. Marshall Mallow says, how are they making him stay? They aren't forcing him to play on the 5th year. They offered him a new contract. Yeah, they offered him a new contract, but it stinks. Like, it's not, he shouldn't take that contract. That would be a bad contract if he took it. If he took $26 million a year after all those other guys have signed, that'd be a bad move by Aiyuk. I don't think he's going to do that. Andre says, if BA is forced to play, he's going to get some soft tissue injury and milk it all season. Maybe. And that's fine. You can live with that if you're the 49ers. I can't live with giving a player away. I won't do it. There's no reason to do it. I got Brandon Aiyuk here. I got him on the 5th year option. If I want to franchise him, I could theoretically do that for 2 more years. And if Brandon Aiyuk's going to half-ass it for 3 years in a row and then expect to get a life-changing contract when he's 29 years old, good luck. Good luck, BA. So that's why I think the Niners have the leverage. I said that right from the beginning. The rules of the CBA put things in the team's favor. That's how the owners have negotiated it. It's not an accident. It just depends on the team to be willing to do it. Some teams don't have the stomach for it. I don't know if the 49ers do. It's never gotten to this point before. We got to find out. Ryan Jones says, BA, what play is hard out? He will never pretend to have will play his heart out. He will never pretend to have a soft tissue injury. That's what I would bet if I were the 49ers. I would say, I don't think this guy's going to dog it. He might not be happy, but I don't think he'll half-ass it if he plays. And that's really all you care about if you're the 49ers, right? That's the bet I would be willing to make if I were the 49ers. I really would, especially at this point. Right? Great. You get draft picks back for him. I can't use those for a whole year. I could tag him and trade him after the year and get those same draft picks and have a better idea of what they are if I wait. So that would be the gamble I would take if I were the 49ers. Daza, thank you very much for the super chat. YouTube channel member, Daza0187. The mismanagement is not actively trying to trade him before the draft. They don't seem to value him as a true number one, so they should have traded him. Well, that's the frustrating part about the back and forth is Aiyuk says, pay me elite money. The 49ers say, you're not elite. You're not a number one. Aiyuk says, trade me. But the 49ers say, great, we've got a number one elite wide receiver here. Pay us like that. That's the conflict in a nutshell. The 49ers want an elite return for a player they themselves have said through their actions is not elite. And I'm sure for Aiyuk, it's incredibly frustrating. He's probably said the same thing over and over again. You guys are the ones telling me I'm not good enough, that I'm not that good. So why then are you demanding what you're demanding in a trade? It can't be both. If you think I'm worth this much in return, then why don't you pay me this much? And the 49ers answer should have been time and time again, because we don't have to. It'd be different if it was like a Dak Prescott situation with the Cowboys, where he's a free agent and you can't tag him after this year and you don't control his rights after this year, right? That would be a totally different situation. If that was the situation and the 49ers handled it this way, I would be crushing them even more than I already have. That would be a totally different situation. That's the cog in the machine to this point, or the I don't know, the hair in the soup, whatever you want to say, is that the 49ers don't have to do anything because they have the contractual leverage. And I think that's why they haven't upped their offer since May. Otherwise, they would have had to, really. Jan says, I was on Brandon Aiyuk's side, but his shtick got old. Now he sounds immature. I think that is an opinion most 49ers fans agree with. And let me know in the chat, are you on Brandon Aiyuk's side or the Niners side at this time? I feel like Aiyuk has never really managed the PR side of this. He's never really had the fans on his side for very long. I think the 49ers have run circles around him in that regard. Every time he's tried to do something to maybe get the fans on his side, the 49ers have countered, and he looks bad, especially because Aiyuk has undercut his process on this multiple times. I'm just seeing a comment now. 95.7 The Game tweeted out Fred Warner's quote on Deebo Samuel. You can tell he took the offseason really serious. He's been outstanding. I think this obviously has been his best camp in terms of coming in, being prepared, ready to go. He's setting himself up to have an amazing season. Of course he has. He's in a contract year. Like, the flowers that Deebo's getting for simply doing his job and being a professional are unbelievable to me. I will never understand it. Herbie Holland, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate it. How is it you draft a guy, groom him, he becomes an all-pro like you want, is a number one receiver on your team despite the offense not using him like they should, and you don't want to pay? Really? Herbie is on Brandon Aiyuk's side. It's a totally legitimate argument, right? When you draft a guy, you hope he turns into the type of player that Brandon Aiyuk is. Clearly, 100%. Second team all-pro, 1,300 yards last year on 75 catches. Just a guy that blocks, the guy that does all the right things, plays the game the right way, all that stuff. It's a completely legitimate argument. It is a completely legitimate argument. Now, would the 49ers be acting differently if he was going to be an unrestricted free agent next year, and would they be willing to pay him? Maybe. I don't know. We don't know because we're not in that world, and we won't be for quite some time. But it's understandable if you're on Brandon Aiyuk's side. Look, I've said no one is doing anything wrong here, so to speak. There's no bad guy in that. It's not wrong that the 49ers want to get Brandon Aiyuk for as cheap as possible, and it's not wrong that Brandon Aiyuk wants the most money he could possibly get. That's the job of both sides. That's the business part of this and how they have to work it out. So I don't blame the 49ers for wanting to get Brandon Aiyuk for as little as possible and exercising the leverage that they do have. Where I would blame the 49ers is if they don't fully execute all their leverage. Right? If they don't say to Brandon Aiyuk, play for us or no one. If they acquiesce and just trade him to the Steelers, then I will. Because that's just bad business. Plain and simple. Benjamin Bear says, can we move on to other subjects until there's something to report? What's going on with Trent? Injuries? Yeah, Benjamin, I'd love to. There's nothing going on with Trent. We haven't gotten any updates or anything like that. I talked about some of the injuries earlier. I don't know if you were here. Fred Warner has a foot injury. He wasn't practicing today, but he said it's minor. He doesn't have any sort of foot protection. He's not in a boot. He's not limping, nothing like that. Tariq Owens was just cut with an injury designation. He's got a broken hand or a broken finger. He's going to be out 5 to 7 weeks. So he's cut with an injury designation. They're working out wide receivers right now. If you want some other camp headlines, I continue to see and read good things about D. Winters. Seemingly every day, he's making fantastic plays. He really seems to have taken a leap. Again, I take all this training camp stuff with a huge grain of salt, because I don't know if it's true. And we always hear training camp reports about good players that end up being nothing in the regular season. But everything so far, all the good news that there could be, there is right now about D. Winters. So that's great, because the 49ers obviously have a need at linebacker with Dre Greenlaw's injury. And if he's living up to that, that'd be awesome. And let's be honest, we all know the 49ers need to restock the cupboard. You know, people like to call them an aging team. I don't totally agree with that, but it would be really nice to see a new crop of younger players to go along with Brock Purdy, who's still very young, Tig Brown, who's still very young, Talanoa Hufanga, who's still very young, Bosa and Warner are in the prime of their careers right now. You'd like to see a couple more like 24, 23-year-olds step up and fill that void. And D. Winters appears to be doing that right now. So credit to him. Braden Willis seems to be getting a lot of love too. It's hard for me to focus on this stuff and talk about this stuff with my whole chest when I know this stuff with Trent Aiyuk is going on, because I know what's more important, right? Like the 49ers shouldn't be focusing on these guys. They should be focusing on the big guys. And then cross your T's, dot your I's, get all that stuff out of the way, and then you can focus on this stuff. Like, wouldn't it be great if we're going into the game Saturday against the Titans and it's like, hey, finally this Aiyuk situation is over. Trent Williams is signed. He's going to be back at practice. Now let's talk about these younger guys at the 49ers. Who's made the leap? Let's talk about Dominic Pooney and all that stuff. That's what we want. Benjamin says, did no one ask Kyle about Trent at the press conference? There was one Trent Williams question at the press conference. There were 18 Brandon Aiyuk questions, as there should have been. But the question with Trent Williams was, are you in communication with Trent at all? And do you know what he's doing right now? That's a terrible question, because it lets, first of all, when you ask two questions, you let the person that you're asking off the hook because they can choose which question to answer. Also, who cares if Kyle Shanahan is in communication with Trent Williams? What you needed to ask was, when is the last time the 49ers made Trent Williams an offer? Now, he very well may say, I'm not going to get into that, but you have to ask him anyway. You have to get him on the record and ask him. Don't just put words in his mouth and let him off the hook and ask stupid questions like this. Do you know what Trent Williams is doing right now? I don't know, picking his nose? It's like he's waiting for the team to make him a real offer. That's what he's doing. But that, I believe, was the only Trent Williams question at the press conference yesterday. And the 49ers press corps has completely bungled this. Why they didn't ask, hey, Kyle, why hasn't the team upped their offer to Brandon Aiyuk since May? Like, how has no one asked him that? You haven't given this guy more money since May? He told you what you offered was not enough, and you haven't even made another offer since then? You just said, okay, take it or leave it? Like, why? Kyle, if this team is supposed to be all in for a Super Bowl year, how is Brandon Aiyuk unsigned? How is Trent Williams unsigned? How is that all in? Why does it seem like your actions and your words differ on this subject? Didn't ask him that either. Andre says, not surprised on the 49ers press corps. Yeah, you shouldn't be. Let me just tell you, if Kyle coached in New York or Philly, whoo, baby, he would not be loving life right now. He absolutely would not be loving life. He would have got grilled about this situation. But he's in San Francisco, so they just want to check the box. That's what it feels like with the 49ers and the press corps. Just check the box. Oh, we know we have to ask about Aiyuk. Let's check a box, even though the question sucks. We know we have to ask about Trent. Okay, check that box. Technically, we did our job. Yet they love to try and take shots at people with blue check marks, as they say on Twitter. They love to do that. Andre says a bunch of milk duds and brown nosers. That's funny. Milk dud is a good insult. It sounds meaner than it is. I like it. I always like that. Milk dud, meatball, donut. Those are all good insults that they sound mean, but then when you see them in print, they're not really that mean. Those are the best kind. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to click on that comment. That's my bad. Corey Soto says they were complacent and allowed the market to completely undermine their dated strategy. It's embarrassing. Brandon Aiyuk has done everything you can ask for. It's a fair question. That would be another question for Kyle Shanahan. Kyle, the team has gone with this strategy for multiple years, and they always end up losing these contracts. They always end up paying up. Is it time you need to update the strategy? Why hasn't the 49ers negotiating strategy changed at all? I would say that too. It's a fair question to ask. Brian Bishop says all these guys think they can just demand trades to who they want, make him sit, and then franchise him twice to set an example. I don't know that you need to go all the way to that extreme, because that would be the most extreme route that the 49ers can take. But I definitely think you should make him sit or put the ball in his court. You want to sit, Brandon? Okay, sit. But we don't think you're going to do it. We're going to make you show us. Because here's the other thing, right? Let's say he starts to sit out. Do other guys say to him like, hey, dude, we need you. Worry about your contract situation next year. I don't know that they will. Maybe they won't. But that's a very real thing too. Or maybe he sits out to start the year, and maybe the 49ers offense kind of struggles a little bit, right? And maybe Aiyuk is sitting out, but he really wants to play. So maybe when the 49ers come to him during the season and they offer him a contract that's more than $26 million, maybe he's like, you know what? Screw it. Let's go. I'm tired of sitting out. This is a raise. Maybe I'm down for that. That's a part of a thing too. So that's why, for many, many reasons, I think the worst thing the 49ers could do would be to trade him for a crappy package now. Now, if they got like TJ Watt back, of course, trade him. That's not going to happen. But trading him for some substandard package, some mid offensive lineman and a second round pick, that makes you worse. It makes you worse. So I don't know. That's where I stand on the whole thing. That's the latest. Again, if he is traded, I'll hop back on a live stream. But I just wanted to address that because there's not enough people, I think, saying that the 49ers have the ability to keep Brandon Aiyuk. And they can and they should. And this idea that Aiyuk is somehow punking the 49ers right now, only if they let him. And they don't have to let him. And we'll see if they ultimately do. I hope they do. Just fix it, man. Come on. Regardless, we will be here. Good, bad, or ugly, we'll be here. Like and subscribe to the video. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. It does wonders with the algorithm for us. Not going to lie. We do have to play those games sometimes. So if you could leave a 5-star rating and review, I would really, really appreciate it. It would go a long way for me. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody. I'll be back with Love and Black tomorrow. On Thursday, I'm sure we'll have a whole new set of tweets to break down when it comes to the Brandon Aiyuk situation. Make sure you join us for that. Appreciate you watching, everybody. Like and subscribe to the Gold Standard Podcast Network, sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. Please gamble responsibly.